Hey, y'all, I'm Bud Elliott, and this is Cover 3 College Football Summer School. We've done our research on the teams, and now we're bringing on the top team experts from the 24/7 Sports Network to help us fill in the blanks. Please follow us on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast. That's Cover 3 Podcast. And leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. All right, class is in session. Hey, guys, I'm Bud Elliott, and welcome back into the Cover 3 College Football Podcast. This is a continuation of our summer school series, and today we're going to talk Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons. Excellent year last year. And to help us do that, we're going to talk to Les Johns of DemonDeaconDigest. Les, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be on, Bud. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well, man. Just looking at the new house. And as we were talking before we hit record, I'm excited to talk a little Wake Forest with you here. 11-3 year. Everybody has to be pretty happy. Top 40 power rating. So in one of the weird teams here where the Vegas power ratings didn't totally agree with the overall win-loss record. And they had a little bit of close game fortune. I don't really love calling it luck. It's not all luck. But I feel like that's still kind of an interesting split to go 11-3 with the top 40. I think part of it may just be the non-conference schedule where maybe the strength of schedule component for what Vegas doesn't totally match up. But having watched these guys a couple times, I was pretty impressed, at least offensively.
Offensively is probably the key. I mean, there's been significant changes defensively over the offseason. And, it's one of those things that if Wake Forest can get, a competent to mediocre defense to go along with their, potent offense, they're going to be a tough out this coming season and in seasons to come. So kind of fixing and tweaking some things defensively will be the next step in Wake Forest football at this point.
Let's do start on the offensive side of the ball because I have a lot of questions about defense. I want to run through the offense with you first. So Sam Hartman is back. I think any college ball fan, especially an ACC fan, knows he's a really good college quarterback. I was looking ahead to some of the 2023 draft way too early preview stuff. Not that those are super accurate anyway. Not a ton of love there on the NFL side, but the guy's a damn good college quarterback. I feel like nationally folks may sleep on him a little bit.
I think there might be becoming this perception that he's a bit of a system quarterback. Wake Forest plays that RPO offense, and they sling the ball around a lot. Wake Forest has been fortunate to have some really quality receivers in recent years, and Ja'Cory Roberson, of course, he'll probably be drafted in the coming day. Well, yeah, Ja'Cory Roberson. And, they've got guys that kind of follow behind them, and A.T. Perry, Donovan Green, and Keyshawn Williams. So 2022 is going to be a pretty spectacular year, I believe, for Sam Hartman. And he should have a chance to kind of quiet some of the folks who, don't necessarily have him up on those draft boards. He's told us in recent interviews that this is his last season at Wake Forest. He actually has 2 more seasons of eligibility, but he plans on this being his last season at Wake Forest.
So you mentioned that Roberson's gone, but A.T. Perry is a total freak. And Donovan Green coming off injury, correct? We loved him as a recruit, and that was quite the coup for Wake Forest. Do you think this group takes a step back at all, receiver wise?
Oh, not at all. I think it takes a step forward. I mean, yeah, they're going to miss Ja'Cory Roberson, but when you bring in Donovan Green back on the outside, I think that I don't remember the last time Wake Forest will have had 2 such great options on the outside as they will with A.T. Perry and Donovan Green. Donovan wasn't a full go for spring camp, but he's on the verge of being a full go, so he'll be good for fall. And A.T. Perry to Sam Hartman right now, they have such a connection. I've called it a video game cheat code because it's like he can just hit A.T. at any time. They know each other so well. They've played together so long. A.T. really took it up a step last fall camp right after Donovan Green went down with his injury, and really established himself as the alpha in that wide receiver room, and had a terrific, 2021 campaign. And watching him in spring camp, we're fortunate at Wake Forest that we get to see all the practices. I mean, he's not letting up. He's full throttle, and I expect him to have just an incredible 2022 campaign.
He kind of has a little bit of that Plaxico Burress thing going on, but when Burress had those really good years for the Giants, it was just 6'5", a little of that glider action, but all of a sudden he's behind you, and he skies for the ball well, high points. He's a fun guy to watch. Christian Beal-Smith, I thought was one of the more underrated running backs in the conference last year, because Wake does run that, how do we say it, extended mesh point. If you guys don't watch Wake Forest at home, they hold the mesh point for like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi at time. It's not a quick decision. Or
It
if
even gets
they
to
really
3 Mississippis at times, Bud.
It's crazy. Well, if you guys watched the national CBS game, Florida Alabama last year, for the 2-point play, Florida tried it against Bama when they had a chance to time in the swamp. It didn't actually work, but I thought his patience, and like, not every running back can do that, and I thought he was really good. What are they looking like without him now?
I think it's probably there's some question marks, but there's some answers too. Like the answers is like last year is a 3-man split at running back between him, Justice Ellison, and Christian Turner. So those two guys return. So you get back roughly 60% of the production, but what you kind of miss is that leadership, and you miss the pass blocking as well. And you just miss that experience in the room. Christian Beal-Smith was a guy that had told the staff, throughout the season that last year was his last year. And then at the last minute decided he wanted to come back. And by that time, there just weren't any spots remaining. So, now he's at South Carolina. And, I think everybody, wishes him well. And I think he could have a big year if he's the featured back there. So Wake has 2 guys they can kind of count on. Both of them need to grow in certain areas, especially in the pass blocking game. And then there's a question mark, do they find a third? And, there's a good competition for that. Quentin Cooley showed some things in the spring. And then there's always a chance Damon Claiborne, incoming freshman for Virginia, could get a chance to play as well. Will Towns did some good things in spring camp. So there's a trio of guys who will be in the mix to kind of join those 2 guys. And then, of course, there always will be injuries as well. And the question will be, will they have the depth there at running back to account for that now with Christian Beal-Smith gone?
Les, speaking of depth, I look at the snap count chart from last year, and unless this is not updated, only 1 guy on the offensive line of any consequence is truly gone. It looks like the rare deep group of offensive linemen. I've been doing quite a few of these summer school series. Almost everybody's like, oh, they barely had any offensive linemen available to practice this spring, and they want offensive linemen in the portal. Wake looks, I'm not sure how talented all of these guys are, but the snap count returning is really probably the highest I've seen here. And I've done about 40 of these episodes so far.
You could argue they have 5 starters returning because Javionte Nash was slated to be a starter last year, but
that's
then
right, preseason
missed. Yeah. So they lost Javionte Nash and Donovan Green. Both of them were announced, I think, during ACC Media Day, and they were considered to be pretty significant losses for the Deacs. So losing Zach Tom, is huge. He's going to go in the first couple of days of the NFL draft. Fantastic guy on that line. But they do have 5 returning starters, like you said. They got a lot of experience. The question will be, if one of them goes down, where does the depth come from? And then the bigger question is not something to look at for 2022, but you've got all these guys with all these accumulated snaps is what happens in 2023, because there's not liable to be many folks back after this. So this is a year to kind of capitalize, I guess.
No doubt about it. All right. So that was a really fun conversation for Wake fans. Top 10 offense. Now we got to talk about a 92nd rated defense. Let's start with the coaching changes. What did Wake do, and what are they hoping to accomplish?
Well, I think when you look at 92nd ranked defense, there's a couple things to take into account. There's certain things you can't look at Wake Forest in terms of how you judge their defense because Wake runs at such a rapid pace. The defense is going to be on the field more often than other defenses. So they're going to give up more yards. They're probably going to give up more points. But they still, taking all that aside, they weren't a great defense regardless, right? I mean, we can face facts. Brad Lambert, a guy who was at Wake Forest as defensive coordinator under the previous administration, comes back. He brings in with him James Adams from Purdue to run the safeties. And then you got Glenn Spencer taking over at linebacker. You look at the back end of the defense, that was the area in which they probably needed the most help. And they're addressing that in coaching changes and in bringing guys in from the portal as well. So Lambert's talked a lot about being more aggressive forcing the action a little bit more up front. The defensive line on paper looks to be a strength for this group of Deeks. In spring camp, they got after the offensive line quite a bit. They definitely had their days where they won the day in spring camp, and they won it up front. And when you win it up front, then you can force mistakes and the back end can make plays. So I think that's what they're wanting to do, is they're wanting to dictate, be more aggressive. They're talking about forcing more turnovers, which is interesting because Wake already forced a lot of turnovers. So, but that's the mantra they're speaking right now.
Let me get out my off-season college football bingo card and mark off force more turnovers here.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
This is why I love doing these series, though, because just on a surface level, looking at the defensive line, they lose Fox, they lose Vion, they lose Kamara up front, and not those guys were necessarily studs, but they did play a decent number of the snaps for the Deeks up front last year. And you think it'll be an improved defensive line. And I think that's a real value of this series, is getting to pick the brains of these guys who see these teams in spring ball and see them every day, like yourself. Linebackers should be improved, I would think. I mean, they get both guys back, but it was also at times last year a bit of a liability.
Yeah, I think the belief there is that they needed a change at coach there, and Glenn Spencer brings a lot of experience to that linebacker room. And you talk about the two guys coming back. I don't think there's many question marks about Chase Jones and Ryan Smenda. It's just who relieves them to where they don't play 90 snaps a game, because you can't really be on the field for 90 snaps a game for 12 to 15 games in the season and hold up physically, for Wake Forest. So they need to find, number 3, number 4, number 5 in that linebacker room. Dylan Hazen showed some things in camp. Quincy Bryant showed some promise, but they really, don't have, aside from those top two, there's not proven depth yet in that linebacker room. They may probably look in the portal to bring a guy in there.
Speaking of the defensive backs, you noted that they went out and they got some new coaching help, but they also got some transfer portal help. I see Brendan Harris obviously coming over from Vanderbilt. Is that the guy you referenced there, or is there more that I'm not showing on my sheet?
No, Brendan Harris is the one I'm referencing. Linebacker, there's actually someone on campus right now as we speak. So, obviously can't talk about him because who knows what happens there. But
Sure.
the defensive back is Brendan Harris, who I think is going to – you might have watched him play before. I think he can contribute to this Wake Forest defense. Malik Mustafa missed spring camp, but I think he looks excellent. He's supposed to be back for the fall. He looks fantastic. J.J. Roberts, Gavin Holmes. They've got some guys on the back end who can make some plays. So they're going to miss Travion Red for sure, Nasir Greer for sure. But I think in the back end is going to be a big improvement.
How much of this unit's defensive struggles last year was just continuity based on injuries week to week? I remember there were some games that I had marked down on my sheet, just they're down to bare bones.
That's a lot of it for sure. When all of a sudden you're playing your, third, fourth, fifth string, safety, and you're counting on them to go the full game against a team like North Carolina, you're going to wear down. You're going to break down eventually, as we see in that game. Wake gave up a 21-point lead in the second half. But yeah, injuries accounted for a lot of it. And that's been kind of a Wake Forest bugaboo over the last 3 to 5 seasons. Is they've had the first and second string to be pretty solid, but do they have the depth to withstand the full 12 to 15 game season? And if they can kind of get over that hurdle and get that depth, then they'll be right there as a contender each year, I believe.
To your point there, I have it as 9 guys having played 250 plus snaps in secondary last year, and that's quite a few. You figure guys, just new coaching and a little more continuity from week to week could pay dividends. I'm looking for, okay, I think the offense can be, if they were a top 10 offense last year, opponent adjusted, they can just hold serve there and get back to maybe like a top 60 defense, not top 92. Yeah. Then they could win. Like 9-3 regular season is not crazy. or perhaps even better,
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think if they get to the middle of the road defensively, that would be probably all they need to be a contender in the ACC Atlantic again.
The draw from the other division is somewhat friendly with Duke and who's the other team on an annual basis? North Carolina, right? Or is that the non-con this year?
No, it's a conference game this
Okay, that
season.
is
It was a non-conference last year, so it's Duke and North Carolina. UNC's at home this year.
I don't have a special coloring for conference team non-conference game as far as my Excel sheet coded. So, and the non-con is very extremely friendly. VMI at Vanderbilt and Liberty after they lost Malik Willis. If Wake doesn't go 3-0 there, they're going to be pretty disappointed, I would have to think.
Yeah, I believe Clark Lee will get some traction at Vandy and we'll get that program going in the right way. But I don't think it's going to happen by September 10th of 2022. So I think Wake should go into Nashville and come away with a win there. And you're right, without Malik Williams, you figure Liberty is going to be a different team. And obviously VMI should be a victory and open tonight. So, Army, without a week to prepare, Wake has typically faced Army coming off a bye week where they have some extra time to prepare for that triple option. And even with the extra week, we saw it didn't really go very well this last year. So it'll be interesting to see Wake face Army at home this time, but without the extra time to prepare. In fact, coming off going to Gainesville, if I remember, and going to Tallahassee, my bad, to face Florida State. So quick turnaround for the team that's tough to prepare for. So if you're going to stub your toe in any of the non-conference games, I would look at that Army game as the one to be kind of concerned about if I'm a Wake fan.
Absolutely. Les Johns, Demon Deacon Digest. Really appreciate the time, and we'll have to have you back on for our fall preview series.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on, bud.
All right, that's the bell. Cover 3 College Football Summer School is over for today, but don't worry. We'll be back soon with even more episodes filling you in on the top teams in college football. Please give us those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow us on YouTube and on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast, and we'll see you all soon.